AI art image generation. It's absolutely blowing up lately. It's everywhere. There are literally hundreds of websites where you can go generate with AI art. But how do you know which ones are actually worth it? How do you know which actual AI models are the best? It can get very confusing. Well, thankfully, I am here for you today. This video is going to be a massive deep dive into the AI art generation world. And you'll notice there's chapters where you can skip around looking at the best free options, the best paid options, my ranking for quality of actual models, and my ranking for the value of the overall websites. I've omitted a lot of websites here that I just don't think are worth talking about at all. And of course, as 2024 kicks in and new AI art websites come out or they get updated, these rankings could change. And also, if you think that I've missed anything in this video, please feel free to leave a comment down below. Oh, and keep in mind, a lot of this is based on my own opinion, my own experience, and a lot of times, especially when it comes to these AI art image generators, well, it all depends on what you actually want to generate, because a lot of them are really good in some areas and really bad in other areas. Hopefully, whether you're brand new to the AI image generation world or are somewhat of a veteran like myself, there will be something new for you to discover in today's video. Without further ado, I want to start out by diving into what I believe are the best free options, ways that you can generate with AI for entirely free. Let's kick things off with my top free AI image generator. Now, this is actually going to be DALL-E 3 made by OpenAI, but in all of the Microsoft configurations. It's a little bit confusing, but Microsoft has a very close connection with OpenAI, and well, in a lot of Microsoft AI-based services that are provided by OpenAI, they're essentially just footing the bill, allowing you to generate anything you want with DALL-E 3 for entirely free. Now, there are some limitations in comparison to generating with the paid version of DALL-E 3, which we will get to. Microsoft Bing Image Creator. This one gives you a certain amount of boosts for the day, and then when you run out of boosts, your image generation just takes a little bit longer. So theoretically, we have infinite DALL-E 3 image generations. All we have to do is sign in with a Microsoft account to Bing Image Creator. Of course, being DALL-E 3, well, the quality of your generations is going to be pretty darn good. It understands text quite fantastically. The only downside is that we can't change our aspect ratio, we have less fine-tunability and control, and it's being hosted by Microsoft, so there's some weird little quality discrepancies in your actual image. It's compressed. What's great is that you can do some relatively uncensored stuff, such as famous characters. DALL-E 3 in the Microsoft formats gives you a lot more diversity in the understanding of your complex text prompts and descriptions, the ability to do text on the actual images themselves, which is a pretty big deal, as well as photorealism. Whenever one of my friends who's more of a novice in the AI art generation space asks me where they can get started, I often recommend Microsoft Bing Image Creator because it's free and you get lots of really great images, whether you're a beginner or a more advanced user. Like I said, there are some other places you can use DALL-E 3 for entirely free through Microsoft, where they're just footing the bill. Another one of those places is Microsoft Designer. They have automatic background removal, generative erase, but they do have just the ability to generate really nice images with DALL-E 3. And the final Microsoft place where you can use DALL-E 3 for entirely free is going to be Microsoft Copilot or Bing Chat. This is my least favorable option, but it does have access to that DALL-E 3 API. You have to talk to the chat bot and it will, make the prompt for you and everything, which can be good for beginners because it might know how to prompt better than a beginner, but I think it takes a little bit of the magic away from AI image generation, like learning to prompt AI image generation, and I feel like it takes a little bit longer at times, and it will often disagree with your prompt more often if you want to make something a little bit more risque or with copyrighted characters. But yeah, as you can see, we generated plenty of really good images just by chatting with the Bing chatbot. By no means a bad place to generate. I think I just prefer Image Creator over the rest. Alright guys, so next up we have got to talk about Stable Diffusion XL and Stable Diffusion as a whole, because it's a whole nother world out there for AI image generation. If you want to dive deep into this stuff, if you really want to do something specific, Stable Diffusion is oftentimes going to be your best bet. I'll try to make this very simple for those of you who are new to image generation. Stable Diffusion is not like the other generators. It's open source. It's free for anyone to download and manipulate right down to the source code. This has allowed people to train their own little Stable Diffusion models and make all kinds of different stuff. There are little Stable Diffusion LoRa's or tiny models for photorealism or anime style, pixel art style. It gets really complex and really deep. But generating with Stable Diffusion in your own models can be a little bit more complicated. There's various tutorials for that. I actually have some tutorials on this channel that I'll link down below. But yeah, essentially, more or less, Stable Diffusion allows you a whole nother level of controllability and nuance than you would get from a normal closed source AI image generator. In this sense, you can't really compare something like DALL-E 3 or Midjourney to Stable Diffusion because it's just a whole nother world, but it is a wonderful free option. So this is what I'm going to provide to you guys in regards to Stable Diffusion. This is civitai.com, the best place, in my opinion, to get any of these fancy little Stable Diffusion trained models. You can already see right off the bat, we have a model just for Baymax from Big Hero 6. Models just for Ron Weasley from Harry Potter. I mean, the list of models goes on and on and on, and these can all be applied to Stable Diffusion. If you want to really dive headfirst and dive deep into AI art generation, this could be a pretty great place to start. But yeah, Civit AI is entirely free, and they have a plethora of models from their amazing community to download from. A little bit more on the complicated side, but it absolutely can be worth it. With our little Stable Diffusion birds and bees talk out of the way, let's check out some of the websites that combine Stable Diffusion and other models together, or use Stable Diffusion in their own special way to do AI art image generation in their own way. Again, guys, we're still only talking about the free websites here. Welcome, everybody, to playgroundai.com. This is one of the most popular and one of my favorite websites to generate AI art with. Again, you can do AI art image generation for entirely free here on Playground. There are so many options. They have a fantastic interface, and they even have their own special model. Now, a lot of these websites, such as Playground, are going to have subscription plans, but they do all have at least the ability to create some amount of free images. So Playground here allows you 500 images per day for entirely free, which is pretty darn cool. And then, you know, they've got their other plans, which you can check out if you're so inclined. But if you're going to get a plan to anything, I recommend you try out all these websites for yourself first, and then decide upon the one that you like. Playground is fantastic for beginners. They have these little tutorials up in the corner that you can follow to start to generate. They've got different methods of generation that are all pretty simple. Their main way of generating is this canvas tab-esque thing. So if I just, you know, do a quick little generation, we could see something pops up and then it moves right next to it to do my next canvas generation. But I can actually overlap these if I want and actually combine generations right off the bat. So it's a really nuanced and creative way to actually make AI art, and it's very seamless and easy to use. Like you can see, these two generations are combined together here. That's a pretty special thing to do, and it just does it all seamlessly here on Playground AI. And 500 a day for entirely free, man, that is impressive. Now, they do have a more traditional interface, which I also love a lot, which is their board interface. You can see this is just a little bit more complex than generating with DALL-E 3, for example, because we have a bunch of settings we can tweak. The settings are all very user-friendly, though, and you'll notice there's a lot of similar settings across all of these AI image generation websites because a lot of them are just using Stable Diffusion XL and various models made for Stable Diffusion XL. That's how powerful Stable Diffusion is in this AI art space. So yeah, just a very quick rundown of Playground AI. First up, we have filters here, so we can do animated, night vision, anime style, delicate detail, ultra lighting, all of these different styles you can apply. Obviously, your main prompt, you can actually expand the prompt, which will use AI to improve upon your prompt you already have. Really cool idea. You can actually do a negative prompt here or an exclusion from your image. So if there's specific things you don't want in your image, you can actually define them out. We can also do image to image, which is when we upload an image of, you know, ourself and then do an AI generation off of that. If you're new, that's a whole nother can of worms that can be dived into later. I wouldn't focus too much on image to image at the moment. And then they also have control traits as well, which is another really cool option. Again, this is a little bit more in depth. If you're new, I wouldn't worry too much about that. On the other side here, you can see we can change the model. Stable Diffusion XL is the default one. Just Stable Diffusion XL without any of those extra added on models, well, it can be very powerful. I mean, this is just raw Stable Diffusion XL, but with those added models, you can see things can get changed up pretty easily. They actually do have their own special model here on Playground, which is called Playground V2. Playground V2 is not a bad model by any means. I wouldn't say it's any better than Stable Diffusion XL though, but it's cool that they do at least have it, and it is a decent model. You can see here are some image generations from Playground V2 with the vibrant glass filter. Of course, you can do number of images at once, up to 4 with the free plan here on Playground. Sampler, quality and details and prompt guidance, resolution, all more advanced options if you're a more advanced user. So yeah, that is Playground AI. I think it's fantastic. Pretty great free website to generate AI art. Just a reminder, guys, none of these are ranked yet. That is coming later in the video. Right now, I'm just talking about first the free ones, then the paid ones, and then we'll get into ranking. Next up, guys, we have Ideogram AI. This one made a little bit of a splash earlier in the year for being the first mainstream model to do text quite well. As you can see, there's a lot of text going on with this model. Yeah, this is actually its own separate model, no Stable Diffusion, and it is pretty darn good. Does photorealism, does all these different characters. It's also relatively uncensored, which is pretty nice to see. With Ideogram AI, you can do 100 images per day for entirely free, or about 25 prompts. So you don't really get to create very much for entirely free, but I will say that this model does have some clear benefits over, Stable Diffusion in some small areas like text generation. And if you wanted to, make a logo for your business, hey, it could be a pretty good option. Not much to say other than it's a pretty cool little model with a decent free plan. So next up, we have to talk about Leonardo AI. This is another phenomenal AI image generation website. They have their own custom models based off of Stable Diffusion that are pretty popular at this point. You still do get 150 daily tokens. Not as good as Playground AI in the free world, but still a phenomenal website nevertheless. A huge majority of people do prefer Leonardo AI because it does a lot of little things very well. They have things like prompt magic or alchemy V2 or photorealism. Lots of interesting ways to change up your generations. Honestly, their user interface isn't half bad, but I do think that is a little bit more confusing than something like Playground AI. But that doesn't mean that it's not possible to get a really good generation a little bit quicker sometimes than Playground AI because of all of those little alchemy or photorealism tricks they can add in that you just don't see with something like Playground AI. Again, they also have image guidance. This is going to be your image to image. A little bit more on the complicated side, not going to dive right into that. Either way, I would have absolutely zero quarrels with anyone who said something like, hey, Leonardo AI is my favorite place to generate AI art. I like their options. I like what they do better than other companies. And I think there's no denying that a lot of the outputs you get from Leonardo are simply mystifyingly good. Just a little bit more limited in terms of how much you can actually do and generate per day for entirely free. Alright, now things are getting interesting. This is Meta's Imagen. This is an entirely free AI image generator made by Meta or Facebook, and it's actually pretty darn good, but it's not competitive in my opinion with something like DALL-E 3 or Stable Diffusion XL. Still, you get some pretty good images for entirely free. It's just another place to go ahead and try out AI image generation. A lot of these big companies like Facebook are just going to foot the bill. You get some interesting stuff out of this one, man. I think the quality is not too bad with Meta Imagen, but it's not as good as some of the other generators that are out there. So yeah, I mean, this is just worth it to play around and see what you can get. Like I said, the image generation space has grown and evolved a lot. There are so many new generators that are worth talking about and entirely free. But yeah, not too many features other than some basic generation. Let's move on to the next thing. This is very similar to Facebook's generator, but it's actually by Google, and I think this one's a little bit better in the quality department, to be honest. This is Google's Imagen. This one was hyped up for a very long time with a big Google paper and website, but was never released, and then we actually got access to it, and by that time, DALL-E 3 already existed. So, in my opinion, it's not as good as DALL-E 3, but it's still, again, entirely free to generate. You can see this is actually pretty good in terms of doing like a copyrighted character. Like, this is not that easy to do. Even though they look like stuffed animals, I'm pretty impressed by the quality that you actually get out of Imagen. It does a very wide variety of generations, all for entirely free. It's one of the more competitive image generators that we've seen. Again, not too much in terms of the options department or changing your image. It does have this little option to help you write with more detail, very similar to the AI prompting we see with Leonardo or Playground, but other than that, you don't really get much in the way of options. But I think you guys will end up seeing that this thing does actually rank very high in the actual overall quality ranking, because, well, it is actually quite good. So next up, guys, we're talking about Mage.space. This is kind of an old-fashioned one, but it is pretty cool. As you can see, this is just basically access to your basic stable diffusion. You have some basic settings you can change around. What's cool is that you have unlimited generations for entirely free, no matter what, with stable diffusion. Pretty cool. You can also enhance or upscale these generations unlimited for entirely free, but if you want access to any specific models or the Mage.space exclusive models, you'll have to upgrade to one of their plans. So for entirely free, this is more or less just some basic free stable diffusion. I think this is at least an honorable mention, especially because with the Pro plan, it's actually quite good. Not to mention they do have an Explore page where you can kind of see this little social media tab, see other people's generations. Playground AI also has this, and the next generator we're talking about does too, so it's nothing new, but still nice to see everything sort of categorized in its own special way. So next up, we're talking about Lexica.art. This is more of an AI search page, but they actually have their own AI image generator, which is not too bad. Their Aperture v3.5 model. Again, this is pretty simple generation overall. I don't think this is the best generator in the world, but again, it is something you can access for entirely free. You only can generate 100 images per week though. In my opinion, Lexica here, it's great for searching for AI, but in terms of being an actual website to generate AI art, it's one of the weaker ones. Like I said though, the search for AI art on this, it's very easy to find something cool. Lots of super weird stuff on here. That's Lexica. At least it's an honorable mention in comparison to the rest. Not going to spend too much time on it. If I had one thing to say about it, it's the best AI image searcher out there. Moving on to an absolute legend in the AI art generation space, Craiyon. This is an AI art generator that started out as free and has remained free for the whole time. They do now have paid plans, but you can still generate for free. By modern standards, it's not really the best, but you can still do a lot of fun stuff with it. I think this one at least deserves an honorable mention because while it does take like a minute to do a generation, they have like this cool inspirations tab where you can see stuff the community has generated so far, and it is its own custom Craiyon model, which is oftentimes trained on a lot of stuff that Stable Diffusion or DALL-E 3 might not be. So if you're looking to do something really specific, you might find that Craiyon is oddly suited towards that, such as a lot of these cursed meme generations. And oh yeah, you get 9 outputs at once, which is pretty darn cool. Although, like I said, I mean, it's a kind of an outdated model, it's not the best. Whew, so that is everything that is free, guys. That could have been a video all in itself, but we're also covering the paid stuff, how it compares to the free stuff, and then of course the ranking for quality and the websites. I'd also like to mention we are not covering iOS and Android apps. There's some really great free generators that also exist for iOS and Android, but we're just not talking about those today. Let's dive into the solely paid options. First up, I think you all know that we have to talk about Midjourney. They just launched their brand new V6, which has kind of been taking the AI art space by storm. There's no free trial of Midjourney, it's only paid starting at $10 a month. But man, I think the generations do speak for themselves. Midjourney is one of those top competitors. I did a whole video about Midjourney V6. It absolutely competes with DALL-E 3. I mean, check out this pixel art. That is not easy to do. Pixel art has classically been very difficult for image generators. We can also see that text is now entirely possible with Midjourney V6 as well, producing some generations that are simply jaw-dropping. Like this one blew my mind. A perfect Mario and a perfect Midjourney V6 all in like a particular style. Like really jaw-dropping. And of course, that classic level of photorealism that we've known since Midjourney V5 that is just out of this world quality. I mean, truly phenomenal stuff. There is no disagreeing that Midjourney is one of the best, and a lot of people prefer it over anything else, especially this brand new V6 model. Let's talk about the payment plans because Midjourney, like I said, is only paid right now. No unlimited option. The lowest, which is $10 a month, grants you access to 200 generations per month, which is not a lot at all. That is barely anything. If you move up to $30 a month, you do get 15 hours of fast generations, which is quite a lot more than you get with the basic plan, but it's still, that starts at $30 a month. And you can get a decent Leonardo or Playground AI plan for $30 a month. So we can talk about how Midjourney might compare against Leonardo or Playground. Like, there's a lot of features that you get with Leonardo and Playground that you just don't get with Midjourney. Plus, not to mention, the Midjourney website doesn't allow you to generate yet. You still have to generate inside Discord, which means you need to make a Discord account and actually generate inside of Discord with a /Imagen command. Super annoying. Even though Midjourney is extremely expensive, they are very promising. V6 has turned out so far to be one of the best generators we've ever seen, and it's only an alpha, with Nick St. Pierre on Twitter here noting that in their office hours, they stated that a big update to V6 was actually coming that improves upon V6's ability to generate text even more. Midjourney is just one of those AI art generators that I end up just keep coming back to because they have some brand new feature that blew me away, or most likely their model is doing something that no other model can do just yet, like make perfect replications of almost any animation style, as proper prompter points out in this example. I mean, the quality of this thing is just absolutely off the charts. The replication of these different animation styles is probably enough to get them sued, let's be honest. Alright guys, let's talk about DALL-E 3 in ChatGPT. Yes, I know it's a little bit strange, but DALL-E 3 is both a free and paid option. To get access to DALL-E 3 inside of ChatGPT, you'll need to subscribe to ChatGPT Plus, which is $20 a month. And that $20 a month gets you a lot more than just DALL-E 3, mind you. So it's kind of like this overall bigger AI plan that just happens to include DALL-E 3. The main difference here is that you can actually just use ChatGPT to generate your images for you. So make me an image of a cat who is very smart, and it's going to take this general depiction I gave it and actually create a prompt around it because it's a language model and it can just do that. So this gives us a new way of actually interacting with the model, where the LLM, the ChatGPT, acts as an intermediary to create better images for us, and we can give the LLM feedback and it will remake your prompt for you. There's some benefits and downsides to this, but you can see it generates a pretty descript prompt here, and you do get a very good image out of it, I will say that. There's also the option here of doing 16:9 and 9:16 images, which you cannot do with any of the Microsoft versions of DALL-E 3. So if you want to do a 9:16 or a 16:9 aspect ratio DALL-E 3, you gotta do it inside of ChatGPT. But man, I gotta say, the images do come out really, really nice. No complaints from me here. I love DALL-E 3. What's been popular on the internet lately has been the ability to do something like this. Make the cat even smarter. And the large language model ChatGPT is going to try to prompt around your feedback, taking an already very astute and smart cat and making him somehow even smarter, and you can just push things to the max and get some really wild, crazy images. It's a fun way to interact and explore with the models. However, I do think that there is some self-discovery that you can miss by interacting with the model in this way. Even smarter! Dang, that is one smart cat. It's also worth mentioning and noting that I think the best human prompters out there are actually better at prompting than ChatGPT could ever hope to be. So while this thing is good probably for beginners, the more advanced user is going to find it a little bit limiting sometimes. My god, it's Giga Brain Cat. Give him the galactic brain. That is the galactic level intellect that I was looking for. Anyways, guys, let's go ahead and move on. So next up, we're talking about Adobe Firefly, and this is actually a really good image generation model. As you can see, you get monthly generative credits. We have 250 credits per month. Technically, yeah, that is free, but I don't know, they just had a paid plan and they changed it, so they're always changing things. Adobe's usually expensive, so just to be safe, it's here in the paid section, and 250 credits for free a month is not much at all. Anyways, this generator actually kind of lends itself towards photorealism and realistic images in general. As you can see, we did some close-up photos here, and they turn out pretty darn good. It can do art as well, of course, don't discount it on that front, and the art it generates absolutely is very good. But like I said, you can actually change things like the color and tone that are very specific, or the very specific lighting. Like, I want to see dramatic light for this image, and I want the composition to be shallow depth of field. I can have photo settings that are very specific, so I can have a low or high f-stop. I can even change the shutter speed or the field of view. There's all kinds of really advanced settings that you get with Adobe Firefly that you just don't see with a lot of other image generators. Honestly, I would have to say that other than Midjourney, this is going to be your best generator in terms of making something that is a photograph, photorealism. I think Midjourney actually has more coherency than Adobe Firefly most of the time, but the amount of, specific creative control, the ability to change the shutter speed, the ability to change the aperture, that's something you can absolutely try with Midjourney, but I don't think it's going to work as well as it works inside of Adobe Firefly. It's a really solid generator, and I think people often overlook it, mostly just because it's not like a nice free place to generate. 250 generations a month is absolutely nothing. Oh yeah, don't forget, they also have all of these crazy effects you can combine: painting, bokeh effects, synthwave, different materials, different concepts. You can really get crazy and make some stunning ideas that you just normally wouldn't be able to do with a lot of those other generators. So often overlooked, maybe for some good reasons, Adobe Firefly. So that's it for just art generation. I want to run through some websites that are honorable mentions. They do image generation in a different kind of way. They do specific things with it, and I want to talk about them. These are also all going to be paid, but they are absolutely worth talking about, and they're a big part of the image generation space. So guys, let's talk about Crea AI, which is currently in open beta. They actually have an entirely free upscale and enhancer, which is pretty awesome. So the real-time generation with Crea is pretty amazing. Essentially, our output is over here on the right, and on this side we can just draw, and things are going to change in real time, and it's going to, really closely resemble that original image that you are basing off from, as well as take in whatever text prompt you want. It is amazing stuff. So I'm doing a tabby cat on the beach here. I'm going to make orange for my tabby cat and then draw him, right in the center. There is our tabby cat. Oh, his head is going to be up here, and it's going to be pretty big. There, now he got his big head. He's also got a lump, but you can kind of see how this goes, and you can kind of evolve your image over time and just generate some really unique and cool stuff. It's a new way of interacting with AI art. It doesn't really fit in with the rest of the AI websites. That's kind of why it's in its own category, but it is really, really darn cool, and it's so impressive. It's absolutely one of the most fun ways to interact with AI art, and I just had to at least mention it in today's video. By the way, you can do something very, very similar to this, essentially real-time AI art on your own machine at home. I have a full tutorial on this that is going to be linked down below. Local real-time art for entirely free. But I'll admit, yes, Krea is just a little bit faster. Next up, guys, we have Magnific AI. This is entirely paid, and the paid plan is ridiculous. $40 a month to access Magnific AI upscaling. It's absolutely absurd. But I gotta say, it is the best AI upscaler I have ever used and ever tried, and it produces some pretty insane results. You can take your DALL-E 3 generations, Stable Diffusion generations, and plop them into this upscaler and really enhance them. Turn them into something you can really share with your friends and actually use in a lot of use cases. It might be expensive, but I have to admit it is pretty darn good. Take this t-shirt design, for example. Absolutely crushes that upscale. Look how detailed it is. That's why this deserves at least a mention here. Upscaling is a huge part of AI image generation, especially if you want to get something really nice, something that you can look at in full detail, because a lot of image generation is still low res. It might be expensive, but man, is it ever good. Hard to beat that detail enhancing Magnific. Next up, we have Prome AI, another honorable mention. This does have some limited free generation per month as well, but it's like 200 gens per month, nothing crazy. The reason it's an honorable mention here is that they have this insane image-to-image generation, where you can take like a little sketch rendering here and convert it into something that really resembles the original sketch. It's pretty darn cool. This page is really meant for like interior designing, relighting things, erasing and replacing objects. You can do text effects, even create your own AI models. It's just an AI site that has taken image to image to a whole nother level, and I really appreciate what they do. even if their paid plans here are a little bit expensive. And finally, we have another honorable mention here, OpenArt. This website is pretty good. You have a lot of community models that you can actually test out and create with here. Again, this is a lot of like that stable diffusion stuff where it's very specific models created for specific tasks, but they're very good at those tasks. So it's kind of like this little creation community site where you can actually train your own model and upload it to OpenArt. It's only like $12 a month for the minimum pack, which actually gives you 5,000 credits a month. That's pretty cheap. However, you don't really get anything for free here. It's a one-time trial of 50 credits to experience all of their features, which I'm not really a huge fan of, but they have gone deep and created this ability where you can upload your own custom model, and anyone can use it on this website. The only caveat being that it is not entirely free. They also have a lot of those fun apps like the QR code maker, background removal, in-painting, sticker creator, image blending, variations. It's a good website, it's worth mentioning, not to be forgotten. And by the way, guys, this is one of the only websites that actually allows you to train your own model, whether it be your face, your specific character you might have created, a specific object, or just a style in general. Those are all of the best free and paid websites that I think are worth mentioning, some of their quirks and differences in between each other, and now we're going to get into their ranking, my opinion on where they fall in between each other, the best in terms of quality, and then the best in terms of the value that you actually get. Keep in mind, this is my own opinion. You might have different opinions, and that's okay. We can discuss them in the comments respectfully. And of course, you know, as 2024 goes on, these might change. Generators might get updated, or new ones might come out. For those who might be watching in the future, maybe leave a comment about it. Let's go ahead and dive in. All right, let's start off by ranking all of the different models. I'm going to start with the worst and move up to my number one. Again, this is my opinion. You might have a different opinion. We can absolutely have a respectful discussion about it in the comments below. Alright, this is going to be the top 11 models. Coming in at number 11 is going to be Craiyon. This model is the worst of the bunch today. It doesn't do very coherent things at all, but it does have a lot of understanding towards pop culture references that a lot of the other AI generators don't. Craiyon is a fun and playful model, but it's not really good for more than just funny memes. Next up, sitting at number 10 is going to be Playground's custom model, Playground V2. This model to me isn't anything really too special, very similar to the base Stable Diffusion XL. I think maybe in some areas it will add a little bit of extra pizzazz or a little bit of extra flair to the images, but nothing better in terms of the coherency, text following department. From what I can tell, it can't capture any more elements from your prompt than Stable Diffusion could. In fact, I think that Playground V2 is strongly based upon Stable Diffusion. It might be a fine-tuning of it. Moving on to number 9, this is going to be the custom Lexica Aperture model V3.5. Now, this model I think requires a little bit of prompting to get something good out of, but I do think it has more unique capabilities than Playground AI's V2 model. I've seen a lot of really unique images that come out of it, especially made by the community, and it also has this ability to do certain styles really, really well, which I've noticed. Lexica Aperture has also been in development a little bit longer than Playground AI's models have been. It's definitely a fun model to play around with. Next up at number 8 is going to be Ideogram AI. This is that model that kind of made text generation a little bit mainstream. It was very impressive when it launched. It does very coherent text a lot of the time, impressively, and it actually does a pretty good job at combining a lot of the different elements from your prompt into the scene. However, it lacks in this crystallization department, the fidelity. The actual rendering of the images are often blurry or messy. It kind of misses a little bit of that refinement that you'll see with some of the better models on this list. This space evolves very rapidly, and what used to be like an A tier, A plus tier AI is now like a D tier AI. Big points to this one for remaining relatively uncensored. Something that was there when this launched and is still there today for the most part. Alright, this next one was very difficult to place. This is number 7 on our list, Imagen. This is a good model for sure. It's better than Ideogram in terms of that fidelity department. No, it can't do text as well as Ideogram AI, but in this sense, I feel like Ideogram AI is kind of a one-trick pony in comparison to a degree. All of these AIs are pretty breathtaking after all. Imagen just has this ability to create copyrighted characters. It's a little bit more uncensored than a lot of the other AI. The infinite generation is also really nice with the Imagen, and this model does have the versatility of being integrated into like Instagram, for example. Next up, we're moving on to Leonardo AI's custom models. These really blew me away. They're quite fantastic, and they're like Stable Diffusion with a little bit of flair, very similar to like Playground AI, for example, but they've just been working on their custom models a lot longer than Playground AI, and I think they are much, much better. There's a level of fidelity and quality and high resolution that comes with Leonardo custom models that you just don't see from the other Stable Diffusion based models on this list. It might not have the versatility of the top models on this list, but it absolutely does produce beautiful, gorgeous, colorful, high fidelity imagery, and there's just something really yummy about that. All right, number 5 on our list is going to be Adobe's Firefly, specifically the new V2 model. It's a very, very impressive model indeed. Now we're getting up to some of the big players. This model has an uncanny ability to replicate real-life images. It has a level of fine-tunability and controllability that you often don't see with these big brand company image generators. It has decent prompt understanding as well. Doesn't really do any good text, to be honest, which is kind of the reason why Ideogram is such an outlier today. But I still think that Adobe Firefly has a lot more usability than Ideogram AI, for example. You can truly make some images that you would be able to use, and its creative exploratory aspect is actually really, really high up there, more so than you see with a lot of other generators. That goes a long way. Number 4 on our list is going to be Google Imagen 2. Pretty surprising, I know, but this model was hyped up for a very long time. It's more well known as just Google Imagen, but you're using that Google Imagen 2 API. This model is very good. It has very good understanding of your prompts. It can do some basic text generation as well. Shockingly knows famous characters very well, and it can be very censored at times, but also be very uncensored. There's ways that you can trick this thing into actually generating what you want. People, especially on my Discord server, have been having a lot of fun with Google Imagen 2. It produces some pretty phenomenal results and can also do photorealism pretty much as well as Adobe Firefly, although it doesn't have the same level of fine-tunability and control. I think it's no surprise here that Google is able to produce an AI image generation model that understands the world so well and is so high up on our list today. They are the ones who created Google Images after all. Moving up to number 3 on our list. This is the most difficult AI to place on this list because it just has so many facets. For a lot of people, this is going to be your number 1, and I totally understand why. This is where I put Stable Diffusion XL, number 3. It is a very, very good model. It does minimal text, but it understands prompts in a pretty holistic way, and being open source, it just has so many more capabilities than you see with the rest of the lineup. Again, like I said, if this was your number 1, I totally get why. From the fact that people fine-tune this model all the time and make their own custom little versions that do very specific tasks, to just the mere fact that this has kind of propelled AI image generation to new heights that we've never seen before. It's the most widely used and widely explored model out there, and it deserves a top spot on anyone's list. All right, moving on to number 2 on our list. This is a shocking finish because I honestly didn't know if it was going to make it up here, but they absolutely did pull it off. This is Midjourney's V6 model, and right now we only have access to the alpha, and it's already up to number 2 on my list. But this model is absolutely phenomenal. It does really good text. It does really good characters. You saw like flawless replications of different art styles from pop culture. It also does insane photorealism. Again, if this was number 1 on your list, I totally understand as well. Midjourney is fantastic, but V6, they really blew it out of the water, and I'm really impressed by what they've been able to do. One of the most versatile models on our list today, and it really holds up as just a single model. Again, I think Midjourney kind of loses a lot of points in comparison to other models because it's just so darn expensive. With how much it costs, it starts to make it a very tough sell. And finally, coming in at our number 1 spot, I think you guys already know, it's going to be DALL-E 3. Yeah, I think that DALL-E 3 has the best quality out of any of the image generators. It has the best text understanding, hands down. If you use it through the Microsoft methods that we discussed in the beginning of the video, you will be able to create pop culture characters fairly regularly. Famous people is another story. I mean, you can kind of get around it sometimes. Certainly when it first released, you could, and it was pretty insane at that. Weirdly, DALL-E 3 does kind of fall behind in photorealism, but if you prompt it right, you absolutely can get photorealistic results that compete with Midjourney V6, Stable Diffusion, or Google Imagen. But DALL-E 3 is just so easy to use out of the box. It understands text better than any other model I've seen to date, and it is just so potent and powerful. Somehow they've managed to capture that same allure of this aesthetically pleasing quality that Midjourney has, while keeping like this insane level of just universal understanding of our world. DALL-E 3 represents the next generation of image generation. It's a step above Stable Diffusion XL. Midjourney V6 can compete with it sometimes, but DALL-E 3 was here first, and I still think that it understands prompts better than any other model, hands down, and that is very, very important. It can combine like 10 different elements from a prompt into one. Again, some of you might have your own different opinions for where these different AI generators fall. One thing that really makes DALL-E 3 stand out to me is the fact that you can just do infinite generations for free through Microsoft. I mean, that is absolutely crazy that this generator, this really, really good one, is just totally free. Midjourney, you have to pay at least $10 a month, and you don't get many generations at that. With DALL-E 3, you can just start generating. DALL-E 3 is the king of my list. It is my favorite generator. It is the one that I use the most and I get the most use out of in terms of creating stuff for my channel or making images for my friends. It's my go-to. So that's going to be my model rank up. Again, share your own rankings down in the comments below. I would love to hear your thoughts. Now I want to go ahead and move on to the value ranking for the websites and the models as a whole. So this is going to be a much longer list. So finally, I want to take you guys through my list of perceived value for these AI websites. Coming in at number 16 is going to be Craiyon. It still is useful for creating fun memes and doing pop culture stuff, but it's kind of blobby. The model isn't that great. It's still worth mentioning, and it's still worth knowing about. You're just not going to get that much out of it in general. Next up is going to be OpenArt. This is a website that I just haven't used in a long time, and it does have some special capabilities that help it stand out, but they're very, very niche, I think. If you want to create your own custom model with your own face, there are other options than OpenArt, but OpenArt does have that feature where you can share them with each other, and that's just something you don't really see. So OpenArt, that's going to be my number 15 spot here. It's a really good website, lots of good features, but I think it's just a little bit too niche to be high up on this list. Next up is going to be Magnific, coming in at number 14. This website is very good. It's the best AI upscaling I've ever seen, but again, we're looking at this from a value perspective. They charge you $40 a month for the minimum Magnific plan. That is just out of this world insane. That is horrible. I don't know what they were thinking when they're charging for that, but that is not worth it at all. So while it is really, really good AI upscaling, Krea AI does upscaling that's very similar for entirely free. So Magnific is useful, and I think when you're making AI art, you want to learn to upscale, but for $40 a month, it's just getting put right down at the bottom of this list today. Number 13 here on our list is going to be Adobe Firefly. This is kind of the same reason. They're only giving you a limited amount of generations per month right now. I swear they had a payment plan, but for some reason I could not find it on their website, so it seems like they don't really know what to do in terms of a payment system for Adobe Firefly. Classically, Adobe products are extremely expensive, so this one is just towards the bottom of the list because, well, it really only does photorealism that well, and it does have nice controls for photorealism and a nice interface. There's plenty of other AIs that are also great at photorealism, and I just don't think it has a lot of value over those other AI generators for what you're getting through the Adobe Firefly website. Next up is going to be Imagen at number 12 on our list. Imagen is entirely free, which is really nice, but there's like no features on the website. Sure, you can do stickers in Instagram, which is pretty cool, but I just think that because it's free, it gets a little bump up from Adobe Firefly. Other than that, it's an okay model, pretty smack dab in the center of my previous list. If it had a better website with more fine-tunability and control, maybe it would be higher on the list, but for now, it's just kind of a little tech demo where you can generate images with Imagen. Google Imagen 2 is going to be number 11 on our list. While it is a very good model and it almost tops the charts of our previous list, Imagen 2 is just not a great website to work with. Again, it's kind of similar to Imagen where you just have a prompt box. It's kind of like a little tech demo. There's not a lot of fine-tunability and control with your prompts. They do have one feature above Imagen, which is that AI prompting, which is pretty cool, but other than that, it's just like generate, okay, got some images, generate, okay, got some images. The model, Google Imagen 2, is pretty standout good, but I just think for usability, there's so many websites that actually offer a lot of different structure and changes that you can make to your images that give you so much fine-tuned control. Next up, number 10 on our list is going to be Prome AI. This website is phenomenal. It allows a new level of image-to-image control that I've never seen before. So many different types of image-to-image. Their plans are a little expensive, but again, they're doing things that I just haven't seen before with image-to-image. Taking a sketch and converting it into a real image, doing fully custom reusable AI models. Lexica Aperture is right above it at number 9. Lexica Aperture is only here because it is straight up the best AI image search that you can get. It's very quick and you can compare images and get really creative ideas for AI image generation from Lexica very quickly. You can also see what a lot of the Stable Diffusion or Lexica model generations can look like, and you can build off of them easily. It is a massive repository of AI images as well, so there's just so much on that website to explore, and it's very useful for actually using in your AI creation workflow. And just one tick above that, in the number 8 spot is going to be Mage.space. This website's pretty old-fashioned. It has to sit at number 8 just because it's offering infinite Stable Diffusion image generation. Not a lot of websites offer that. It is completely infinite, completely free. And honestly, for a very reasonable monthly sum, you can get access to 160 plus custom models. That's pretty darn good. Good value with Mage.space for sure. In my eyes, it's kind of like that classic Stable Diffusion image generation, but now you get to access a ton of models for a reasonable price. Number 7 on my list is going to be Krea AI. Shockingly, I actually did put this above Lexica, Mage.space, Prome. Krea does something that most of these other websites just don't do, and that is real-time image generation and entirely free AI upscaling, like I was saying. In comparison to Magnific, the upscaling's not as good, but it's totally free, and upscaling is a huge part of AI image generation. Their plan for Krea does allow infinite generation, but it is kind of expensive, $30 a month. But that real-time generation is just so slick and so cool. There's a lot of value to be had through Krea AI at this moment. This could shift in the future, but for now, Krea gets a nice spot on my list. Next up on my list is going to be Ideogram AI at number 6. I know a lot of you might be shocked. Ideogram AI isn't that good a lot of the time, but it is the second cheapest way you can do text generation with AI, and I think that's pretty huge. That gets it a pretty high position on my list personally. If you wanted to do logo design, for example, completely free with Ideogram AI. And of course, it has that relatively uncensored level of pop culture references. Next up on our list is going to be Midjourney. Midjourney has a lot of capabilities. It's a really nice AI tool, and the new V6 model, as I just discussed, is extremely versatile and quite amazing. However, Midjourney is super expensive, giving you only 200 generations a month for $10 a month. Pretty bad deal, and the next plan is $30 a month, which is quite a lot. I think Midjourney V6 is super useful. It's just a little bit too expensive, and that's why it's number 5 on my list today. If Midjourney had some intermediary plan that was, let's say, $15 or $20 a month, maybe it would get a little bit higher up on the list. There's a lot of value to be had there, and they do produce very promising models. Coming in at number 4 is Leonardo AI, an absolute king in the AI generation website world. They have all kinds of different custom models, the custom Leonardo models, Stable Diffusion models, lots of little tricks to enhance your images. Leonardo's pretty great, but I don't think that they give as much for free as other websites might. That's kind of what's keeping it from being even higher up on the list, but hey, number 4 is still pretty high. Overall, Leonardo AI has really impressed me. They're able to do things that other websites aren't able to do with AI image generation. They also have real-time generation, really good image-to-image. Leonardo is packed full of features and at a decent price as well for their different plans. Again, what's holding them back, especially in comparison to number 3, is just the amount that you get for entirely free. Coming in at number 3 is Playground AI, a really phenomenal website to generate art. 500 images a day for free is incredible. Access to a ton of different custom models, as well as that custom playground model, which, it's not a showstopper, but it's there. Also have a really nice ability to share and explore other people's generations, which is pretty cool. And by far, in my opinion, Playground AI has the best user interface for generating. You can do it either on a board or you can do that canvas thing. Playground AI also has this ability to do joint creations where multiple people can be generating at once on one single board, which is really amazing. So I think that Playground AI has really high value. You get a lot for entirely free. Their plans are also a really, really stinking good deal. While they might not have some of the more creative AI generation ideas that Leonardo has, they still have quite a few. Very, very competitive. In number 3 on my list. Coming in at number 2 on my value list is of course going to be DALL-E 3, but not in ChatGPT because that is $20 a month. If you just wanted image generation, I don't recommend you go buy a ChatGPT subscription, but inside of the Bing Create, Microsoft Designer, Bing Chat, all those Microsoft options for DALL-E 3, it's entirely free and it's infinite, and it's the best image generation in my opinion, so it has to just take a number 2 spot because it's entirely free. There's not a lot of options for generating, sure, but I think that the DALL-E 3 model is so darn good that it can kind of override a lot of the creative stuff that you might see with Playground AI or Leonardo. Even the real-time generation, there's just so much that you can do with DALL-E 3. It's such a versatile model. It's able to propel it just by being free to number 2 on my spot. And finally, the highest value that you can possibly get in the AI image generation space is, in my opinion, going to be Stable Diffusion. It's available on a variety of websites for entirely free. You can generate at home for entirely free. Again, I have tutorials linked down in the description below for that. Stable Diffusion and all of the custom models that are built off of it is just this titan of the AI art generation space that gives you an insane level of value. Almost everything that DALL-E 3, Google Imagen, etc. can do really well can be done very well by a custom Stable Diffusion model. So you're just getting so much bang for the buck. Essentially for free, you can harness the power of the open source community. I love Stable Diffusion. Sure, in comparison to DALL-E 3, you're not going to get the same level of coherency and text understanding, but you're getting at least, 60-70% of it. Again, this is my own opinion, my own experiences. If you guys have something different, we can totally talk about it in the comments below. But guys, that is going to do it for today's video. I know it was super long and it's a doozy, but I think this is going to be a great introduction for a lot of people, a great resource for a lot of people into the AI art generation space. I really stand by every website that I mentioned in today's video, and I think these are all the most relevant ones going into 2024. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I am at VidPro AI. If this video was useful, please consider subscribing, joining my Discord, following me on Twitter, etc. We talk about a lot more than just AI image generation on this channel, so definitely worth a little peek if this website was helpful to you. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.